In this episode, is breakfast the most important meal of the day? What the heck is foot drop? And can eating processed foods spike inflammation in your body? This is the Ask Dr. Daniel DC show. Okay, so this first question actually comes from Simone, a patient of mine in my clinic in Austin, Texas. And her question is breakfast the most important meal of the day? Now, she's been told positive and negatives, and she really just wants to know what I think about it. So, here's my answer. If you own stock in the breakfast market or you're somehow financially involved in the breakfast sector, then yes, absolutely, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Breakfast is now a $15.7 billion market. So again, if you're financially invested in the breakfast market, absolutely yes it is. Now, do I think that you need to eat breakfast to be healthy? No. I think there is much to learn about history, and if we want to know why the answer to this question is no, then we have to actually travel all the way back to 1917, which is the first time that it's mentioned that breakfast is in fact the most important meal of the day. In 1917, the self-proclaimed Good Health magazine came out and said that breakfast was the most important meal of the day, and they wrote several articles talking about breakfast cereals and how it was a great start towards a day, and that it was very important for children to be eating breakfast in the morning. It was also very important for adults if they wanted to stay healthy. The problem, however, is that none of these articles were actually backed by medical science. And in fact, much of what happens today in medical science is really not even backed up as well. In 2007, the British Medical Journal actually published a study called Clinical Evidence, and they were really looking to see how many medical procedures and how much medical advice is actually backed up by science. And what they found was that approximately 13 to 20% of medical procedures were effective, whereas 49% of medical procedures were actually not backed by medical science whatsoever. Say what? True story. Now, the magazine Good Health was actually started by none other than Dr. John Kellogg, the owner of Kellogg cereals. So you can imagine that he obviously had financial interests and reasons for the propaganda, and that's in fact why he started the magazine, was to promote his agenda of trying to get everybody to eat cereal. And he was very successful because, of course, years later, like I said, it's a $15.7 billion market. So is breakfast the most important meal of the day? I don't think so. What I'm going to tell you is that you should actually be eating based out of necessity, not based on timing. So when we wake up in the morning, we shouldn't eat because that's what you do. You should eat if you need to. In fact, if you had a big supper last night or you had a big lunch, then I seriously doubt that you really need to be eating again in the morning, or at least have a big meal. Now, if you're going to go work out, or you're going to lift, or you're going to work outside, then sure, fuel your body, put some food in it. But don't just put food in your body because of time. So start thinking about eating to live and eating based out of necessity. In other words, have you earned your meal? Do that rather than eating because of a time. Now let's go get some tacos. Okay, so this next question comes from, again, another patient of mine, David, out of my clinic in Austin, Texas. And David wants to know, what is foot drop or toe drop? Now, David, I know for a fact that when you first came into my office and you were experiencing these symptoms, we went ahead and ordered some specialized testing called NCV EMG testing to rule out some serious stuff. Now, that's how I want to start by answering this question, is that if any of you out there experience any kind of weakness in your toe, any kind of weakness in your foot, where you notice that you're dragging it and that it sometimes maybe causes you to stumble, you should in fact seek medical help and get that checked out right away, because it could be the symptoms of something major, some neurological condition, things like Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, multiple sclerosis. So it's really important that you actually get that checked out and make sure that it's nothing serious. Another main reason why somebody would have foot drop is because of the spinal discs in their low back. So sometimes these discs can tear, and when it tears, that can start to cause undue pressure onto the nerves, which of course cause weakness because the nerves connect to every single organ and tissue in our body. So what is foot drop? Foot drop is when you have the inability to dorsiflex your foot. So in other words, your foot is not able to come up. Sometimes it starts with the big toe, so sometimes the big toe can't come up, and as it progresses, the whole foot will just start to drop down and drag. So it's a pretty serious condition because, of course, it can affect how you're walking. It can mean that you've got neurological disease progressing, and so again, that's why I recommend that you get that checked out. The most common cause of foot drop, however, is nothing serious like I mentioned, but in fact just something referred to as the peroneal nerve. And so your peroneal nerve is a nerve that exits out of the lower part of your leg, and sometimes you can just have muscles that are really tight that are compressing that nerve, which of course could cause loss of function. And this could easily be remedied by doing the right types of stretches, the right type of compression work, using foam rollers or lacrosse balls, and even having a body worker like a massage therapist go in and dig around that area. Also, there are strengthening exercises that you can just Google online and start working on and seeing if you see an improvement. So again, when it comes to foot drop or toe drop, you first want to make sure that it's nothing serious, that you don't have any kind of neurological wasting disease. If you get that checked out of the way, the next most important thing is to see that you don't have any kind of spine disc disease or spinal problem. And then again, the most common reason why we have it is that peroneal nerve injury, which there are a lot of things that you can find online as far as exercises and stretches and also compression work in order to fix for that. If you still have any questions about that, you can certainly email me and I'll point you in the right direction. Okay, so this last question comes from Bobby, who is also a patient at Family Health Chiropractic, my clinic here in Austin, Texas. Bobby wants to know if eating junk food or processed food can increase inflammation in the body, specifically in the spine. Bobby, that's going to be a big yes. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, there are certain foods that will cause inflammation to increase in your body, thereby increasing your symptoms or pain. So the more important thing, though, is to understand how does that happen. And one of the main reasons that we know today why this occurs is because of cytokine activity. Cytokines, you can break that up into two words, cyto referring to cells and kines referring to movement. It literally means cellular movement. Cytokines are designed to move inflammation into an area to actually protect your body from further injury or harm. And in fact, eating junk food or processed food is very harmful to our body. And really what starts to happen is there are three ingredients, salt, fat, and sugar, which are extremely abundant in these foods. And this we know for sure will cause a spike in cytokines. And wherever you have a spike in cytokines, you're going to have a spike in inflammation. Now, it's important to understand that this is not the inflammation that you would experience, say, when you twist an ankle, right? Or when you have a sprained ankle, your foot will get swollen. That is major inflammation that occurs from an injury. You could have bodily inflammation or cellular inflammation happening at the micro level. So when we start talking about cells, you get these cells that get really puffy, and that starts to impact how your body is working. Certainly, we know that when you have cellular inflammation, this is going to increase pain signals. So these signals go to your brain, tell you that something's not right. In fact, if you have spine pain or you have muscle injuries or tendinitises, eating harmful food like processed foods and junk foods is only going to make that pain worse. So this is of course why I always recommend eating clean or going green. And anytime somebody comes into my office, it's a talk that we actually have to have. How can you ever achieve health if you're not putting the right foods inside your body? So Bobby, to answer your question, yes, 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 eating junk food or processed food causes inflammation, so don't do it. All right, that does it for the 5th episode of the Ask Dr. Daniel DC show. Once again, I'm going to ask that you all subscribe to my channel. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe and follow me and support this channel. I want to keep this thing going and growing, and I want to do this as long as possible, and we do that from our loyal subscribers. So please click on subscribe. If you haven't done so already, you can find me on Facebook. I'm at /Dr. Daniel DC. I'm also on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Daniel DC. If you've got questions and you use Twitter, you can use the hashtag AskDrDanielDC, or you can look me up on Twitter at AskDrDanielDC. And if you recently have adopted Snapchatting, or if you're a Snapchatter, please subscribe to my channel. It's Dr. Daniel DC. That's my username. Again, I hope you guys are finding this information valuable. We'll see you at the next episode.